Breaking news, the Democratic Party is losing so much support from black men, they decided to resort to guilt and fear with new campaign ads.
Ladies on tray, it's good to be here. Hey.
So, what do you do and how much do you
I work in finance, making six figures.
make? How tall are you?
6'5".
Okay. Do you work out?
I like to stay active, yeah.
Do you have a plan to vote?
I didn't plan on it.
Stop it.
What the hell? Join me on Discord to talk about it.
Drink the coffee, it'll make you feel better.
This can't be real. This ad can't be real. There's no way. There's no way. You know what's funny about what I'm noticing recently? I'm noticing that a lot of topics I discuss when it comes to relationships are slowly beginning to become more political, right?
My husband is a big Trump supporter, so we fight all the time. Yeah, I used to argue all the time as well, and I realized arguing morals is not going to get you anywhere. Both parties firmly believe they are morally correct. If you look towards more ethics and look towards policy, having a discussion about, hey, look up this policy, look up that policy. Therefore, both of you can see there is no real good in both parties. That's why I don't believe that politics have anything to do with morals. These people are not moral. They're not good people. However, ethics, code of conduct, that's what we're looking at. We're looking at social economics. We're looking at different groups of people, and we're looking at the policies to see how they implement them. How do they affect and how do they ethically benefit the whole collective, not just one person or one party over another.
You have women who are complaining about being on dates and asking these men who they're going to vote for. My problem with that is that something you do? What I mean is, are you just hyped off the current political climate, or do you really care, right? Do you really care? I mean, if you care about social issues and dynamics within relationships and don't want something that's conservative, don't want a conservative man, and a man who has more traditional values, which I think we can make a pretty strong argument that a lot of these chicks who describe the type of man they want, it'd be hard to find a man like that who doesn't have, at least when it comes to social issues, more conservative values. I think they look for those types of men. But of course, when it comes to other different topics within politics, they'll probably differ with that person. So I thought it was really interesting that they have what it looks like the Pop the Balloon dating show now as a way to market and appeal to black men. I don't see an ad like this working. I just don't see an ad like this working at all. And unfortunately, a lot of chicks out here are calling black men the weakest link.
The way that black men are about to be the weakest link. Remember when it was 52% of white women voted for Trump? It's about to be black men. I don't know what the rhyme or reason is for black men not wanting a black woman in power. Black men talking about some, I don't want no black woman telling me what to do. Okay, but wasn't you raised by a black woman? Why are you scared of black women telling you what to do all of a sudden? Don't you live with your mama still?
Maybe, listen, since she's having this conversation about family structures and homes, maybe part of that is the reason. Maybe part of that is the reason that the black men who feel very strongly about where they stand politically currently are not so comfortable getting behind a woman.
Oh, sorry, you live with your grandma. Don't your baby mom raise your kids? Don't your baby mom pay your bills? Don't your baby mom give you a car to drive? What's going on here? Don't you and your baby mom live with your mom? Talking about some black woman can't run that. What are you talking about? Black women are historically the backbone of society.
This whole response of her assuming that the black men who are voting and choosing to embrace more conservative values are baby daddies is what's crazy. I'll be willing to bet that the majority of the men who hold more conservative values, especially when it comes to relationships and like social issues, I'm willing to bet those men are the childless men, the men who aren't out here creating a bunch of broken homes. This is interesting, man, because there is this trend, and it's not just with black women, but with women in general, where you see women becoming more liberal as men become more conservative.
This was an interesting article from The Guardian from last week. It's titled, "Young Women Are the Most Progressive Group in American History. Young Men Are Checked Out." This graphic is actually kind of amazing. So you'll see this graph in a little bit, but this right here is part of the graph that they used to show how women are becoming more liberal and how men are becoming more conservative. So they just added men and women to the graph, and it's quite interesting. It says Gen Z is seeing a historic reverse gender gap, with women poised to outpace men across virtually every measure of political involvement. So this article speaks to a wider range of things. Women are still going to college at higher numbers than men. Women are still involved, still sticking and staying in the workforce. Single women are still buying homes, and this economy is impacting all of us, but women are still engaged. So it doesn't surprise me that young women are the most engaged politically. It warms my heart. Women have not given up and just said, I'm going to take my ball and go home, even if I don't have a job and I might lose my home. Women aren't doing that. Okay, for the article. When Donald
Is she talking about purchasing homes and saying that she's applauding women for buying homes, even though the market might F them over? I did a video recently on this exact topic. And yes, they also own the most debt, right? The most house poor. The most popular videos I think I released recently was on that topic in specific.
Trump strutted onto the stage at the Republican National Convention last month, it was to a raucous cover of James Brown, It's a Man's World. The song credits men with inventing cars, trains, lights, boats, toys, and commerce. And the message was not subtle, at least not to Melissa Deckman. This idea of America needing someone who is a strong, masculine figure, I think the Republican campaign this year is doing it even in a more pronounced and overt way than it did in 2016, said Deckman, CEO of the Public Religion Research Institute. You have a lot of younger men admiring the strength of Trump, or what they think is strong. Deckman would know. In her forthcoming book, The Politics of Gen Z, How the Youngest Voters Will Shape Our Democracy, she dives into the deep political divides between Gen Z women and men and explores how they feel about growing up in the Trump era. Based on interviews with roughly 90 Gen Z political activists, numerous focus groups, and extensive polling, Deckman has identified what she calls a historic reverse gender gap. She has found that Gen Z men are becoming more conservative, as well as increasingly indifferent to politics, bucking longstanding trends dating back to at least the 70s that saw young people across the board voting liberal and men being generally more involved in politics than women. And I am glad about that. I'm glad about that because these men want to strip women's rights. So I hope that they are all too lazy to get to the polls because they want to actively strip women's rights because they're not getting their wife appliance in the home simply because they are born with a peen. Meanwhile, Gen Z women have not only become the most progressive cohort in U.S. history, but are also expected to outpace their male peers across virtually every measure on the political involvement, such as donating money, volunteering for campaigns, registering people to vote, and of course, voting. So this is the graph that I wanted to get to. It's titled, The Partisan Gap Between Young Men and Women Almost Doubled in the Past 25 Years. So if you start down here in the year 2000, you can see that there was a 12-point gap between the yellow, which is men, and the purple, which is women. And this line right here, the black line, is even, where it goes conservative at the bottom of the line and liberal at the top of the line. Now, women are always more liberal. If you look at the graph anywhere on this point from the year 2000 up to now, women are always more liberal. But it was only a 12-point gap in the year 2000. And now over here, there is a 23-point gap. Women are way more liberal than men, and men are quite conservative. Now, examining this this graph, I don't know what happened over here to where women dropped to be this conservative. This looks like it's about 2004. So if you guys can clue me in, what was going on in history or whatever in this country, about 2004, about 20 years ago, where women actually got quite conservative. What was going on at that point in time? But regardless, we did that dip, and then it has been up, up, up as far as women getting more liberal, and men have just stayed extra conservative. You know, the Me Too movement, Trump's era was all right here, and women are just like, we can't go back. So that's what we're seeing right now. So this graph is very, very telling. I do want to know what your thoughts are on this, where you see the men are just like, no, they are digging in their heels, and they want to go back to a time when women didn't have access to their own finances, our bodies belong to them or whatever. And women are pushing back hard, saying we're not going back. Young women were outstripping men on the political engagement well before Joe Biden stepped aside in favor of Kamala Harris, setting the internet ablaze with memes and teeing up yet another presidential contest between Trump and a woman. Now, with Harris, the presumptive Democratic nominee, a generation already riven by a canyon-wide political gender gap is watching a contest between a woman who could become the nation's first Black and South Asian female president and a man who likes calling women nasty. For me, the question come November is going to be, to what extent do attitudes about gender influence the vote for Trump? Deckman asked. Polls indicate that young men's views on gender, femininity, and masculinity are rapidly shifting. In 2022, 49% of Gen Z men said the United States had become too soft and feminine. Deckman found. Just a year later, 60% of Gen Z men said the same. So it goes from 49% in 2022 to 60% this past year. Deckman found those who agreed with the statement were far more likely to have voted for Trump in 2016 after controlling for political party. Beliefs of young men. So when asked these particular statements right here, this is they strongly agree or somewhat agree with the following statements. White people in the U.S. have certain advantages because of skin color. 72% strongly or somewhat agree. Guys can have their reputations destroyed just for speaking their mind these days. 65% agreed. Men should be represented and valued more in our society. 61% agreed. Feminism is about favoring women over men. Over half agreed. Things would be better if women held more power positions in society and men did more around the house. Only 33% agreed with that.
In my last video, I talked about how if you are somebody who has a family, or like me, have a new family, you know, these conversations are more important to you because you realize you're going to be having these conversations with your children. And I just, it's so obvious to me that when you hear women speak about where they stand politically, they shun masculine men and the dynamic of a woman submitting to her man, especially if you're a Christian. That idea of even being inspired to govern your marriage from a Christian perspective. Through love, yes. Through loving the woman in your life. Because, you know, they'll paint it like these women don't want that. No. But they're against all that. I had a conversation recently with a woman who was talking to me about how much, because it makes sense. She said something there about college education and how it's related to a lot of these chicks' perspective, politically, socially, how they view relationships. And she said, I went to college and I was brainwashed. A woman told me this. She says she went to college and they brainwashed her. And I said, well, what did you think? I thought I was Wonder Woman. I thought I did not need a man at all. I thought there was no need for a man. I thought I was this boss babe, that I needed nobody and I could do it all by myself. And she talked about her attitude and the type of attitude she had when she approached men. It gave off that energy. And so all this makes sense. And I can definitely see how the men who choose to maybe enter the trades, because they understand that maybe a trade will pay more than an office job. You're looking at money that actually pays you more. And college right now is seen as a financial trap from the perspective of a lot of people. It doesn't mean that college isn't right for you if you need it. But a lot of men are deciding, you know what? I don't. And the unintended result of that is that they miss out on all this feminist, and I do mean feminist for men too, because they want to produce more male feminists. They miss out on all this feminist propaganda. When you ask a lot of these chicks the type of man they want and the type of man they'll describe as attractive, a lot of these chicks would talk about a provider and a man who does this and does that. At the same time, we're equals. Just confusion all across the board.
Who's more attractive, liberals or conservatives?
Conservative men, absolutely.
My boyfriend, he's a conservative, baby.
Conservatives.
Not even a question. Conservatives all the way.
They usually believe in God. You know, they have those good foundational values. Better to raise a family with, in my personal opinion.
My question to you guys, didn't that ad just feel a bit cringe? You know, it just seemed a bit disingenuous and just very cringe. I don't know, man. It just seems like she's trying really hard.
Kamala, is it just me? Or is your campaign running like somebody sent 10th graders to plan a wedding? Girl, what is going on? It feels like your whole campaign team is DEI hires. Like, pew! You guys are so bad. I was watching. All right, so here's the thing. Kamala, I watch all of your interviews, all of them, because I cannot believe it. Sometimes, and I've been lied to in the past. I've been given things out of context and it made me draw conclusions. So it made me go and seek the full context of things. So now I go and watch it, and I don't watch the clips. I don't watch the deep dive. I watch your interviews. I don't watch nobody but you. Kamala, you really are going to show up to every single interview and give the same answers, irregardless of the question? You're really going to keep telling us that you were raised in a middle-class family?
I should say this. I haven't watched every interview from either candidate, right? I've seen bits and pieces here, but at this point right now, especially, I think it's because we're getting closer to the actual end of election year. It's seeping over into these topics I talk about, and women just straight up saying, I am not willing to date a man with conservative values. And they're not talking just politically, but they're talking about traditional conservative values within a marriage.
You gonna keep talking to us about that woman who owned the childcare center above the apartment you lived in. You not gonna stop. We got 3 weeks to go. You're not gonna stop. That man asked you how many migrants you think crossed the border since you've been in power. And you said, let's get right to the point. Kamala, that's the point. The question is the point. You wouldn't answer it. Okay, fine. Then you start carrying on about how Donald Trump has lost his mental faculties. He's in cognitive decline. He's crazy. Somebody needs to do something about him. And the person that's interviewing you responded by asking you when you knew Joe Biden was in cognitive decline, because I won't speak for nobody else. I knew Joe Biden was in cognitive decline in 2019. It was during the presidential debates. I think, Kamala, I think you were one of the people who called him out on stage. So in my opinion, that's how long you've known that Biden has been in cognitive decline. The man asked you a question. You're not going to answer it? Okay. Because that's what we're all wondering. We're all wondering, number one, how long did you know? And number two, when did you start conspiring against them? When did you start conspiring against him? We want to know. We want to know. I don't know who's running your campaign, but my theory is that they are all DEI hires, just like you. Just like you. Because I watched the primaries in 2019. I saw your performance on stage. It was weak. You didn't answer Tulsi Gabbard when she spoke to you about the thousands of men that you locked up. Honestly, Kamala, you could have done yourself the favor of denying it. You know you didn't even deny it, right? You just skated over it like you're doing everything else. Like you're doing everything else. That's why I'm inclined to believe that just you have 10th graders planning your wedding. Like I get. I watched you on Charlamagne's podcast. That's the one. Girl, why did you and Charlamagne go to a swing state to have a radio podcast done with a glass screen that had 15, 11 black men on the other side? Why would you not go to the people that are local to the swing state? I have so many questions. I've never been so shockingly confused in my entire life, Kamala. Let me see, what other question I got for you? Come on, why are you, well, I'll give you credit. Every time they ask you, you say that you don't think you deserve any votes. You have to fight for every single vote. But you know that black men, why would a black man vote for you if you made the conscious decision to marry a white man? Or you think we don't see you? I'm telling you, that's the part that's blowing my mind. I think the part that's blowing my mind is the fact that you keep pretending as though we don't see you, or we don't watch the interviews, or I don't even know what. Matter of fact, I'll give you one better. Charlamagne asked you why you keep repeating yourself. He asked you that. And you know what you said back? He said, because you got to say things at least 3 times for people to really retain it. No, that's not true. I don't need to hear something 3 times to retain it. That's not true. I have so many questions.
All right, guys, that's it. What do you guys think of the video? And I want to know in particular what you guys think of when it comes to relationship dynamics where more men and women, particularly black men and women, clash. And can somebody with different political views survive in a relationship, marriage, whatever it may be? What do you think? Is it possible? Should you even entertain something like that? I'm curious to know. Comment down below. Till next time, I'm out. Peace.